Karen. We'll wait about 30 seconds here. Everybody ready? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right. Welcome to our meeting, and we're going to start this Board of Education meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. And for that, I am going to ask Mike Sabat to lead us. Mike, take it away.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it. We're going to start out tonight with a pretty somber moment. I'm going to ask Dr. Shaner to speak for a few moments.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to take a moment of silence this evening to remember the families of Caleb Kiesling, Tyler Kiesling, and Sophia Marie Harris in our thoughts and prayers. These recent graduates were lost last week. Our hearts go out to their families and their friends. This terrible loss. There's no pain that can be associated with losing a child. And please know that we're here for you. Please know that there's anything we can do. Don't hesitate to reach out to us, and know that we're going to reach out to you and check on you. And let's just please take a moment of silence and remember these three young people. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Shaner. So let's get started with our meeting. We will start with a roll call, and all members are present here on Zoom. This meeting is being held virtually in accordance with Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-160. The purpose of the meeting is to conduct the school district's business, and we welcome all who are tuning in. This meeting is a follow-up to the August 3rd work session, where we were presented with a detailed look at what our protocols would be for returning to school in person and what remote and virtual learning would look like. That presentation is available on our website. This is not a community hearing. However, we do invite your participation during our meetings, and there's a couple ways. If you're here in the Zoom platform, you can make a comment at the conclusion of each of our 2 agenda items. Please use the raise hand option in Zoom, and we will unmute you when called upon. We'll ask you to complete a form so that we can include your name in our minutes. When addressing the board, please state your name, your relationship to the district, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I'll remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. The board's role this evening is to listen carefully and hear your questions and comments. We won't necessarily be responding directly, and we do encourage each of you to reach out to your building principal with any specific questions you might have. They're great resources. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting. On behalf of my colleagues on the board, we are grateful to serve this community. We care deeply about the decisions that we make regarding your children and their health and safety. We are parents too. We have 2 items on our agenda tonight, both new business. And to get started, for the first item, the RCS COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Plan, I will turn it over to Dr. Shaner.
Thank you, Madam President. And again, before we go into the details of the plan, just a reminder to the public that we did have a work session on this that lasted almost 4 hours. It is available in 3 installments on our website, so you don't have to watch the entire thing if you would not wish to. And there's also over 100 slides, and we've given careful consideration as we've put the COVID preparedness plan that's required by executive order in front of the board for approval. It's also critically important for us to acknowledge and show gratitude to the dozens of staff members throughout the school district that have worked and continue to work as part of our task force and part of our subcommittees as we plan through this very, very complex process Governor Whitmer put out her return to school roadmap on June 30th. We expected to be in phase 5 somewhere around July 4th. And as you know, we've never moved to phase 5. So all of these folks and many more that probably we've missed on this list have worked diligently to in the service of the school district and the service of our students to come up with the plan. As you know, last week we put out to our community the decision to start the school year remote up until October 1st. Before we get into the board considering the preparedness response plan, I just want to be clear about our decision to start remotely. I consulted with, of course, members of the Board of Education, met with our task force, and had many conversations with dozens of people. But I wanted to be sure that the community understands that I am responsible for this decision. We made it as a team in terms of gathering information, but I am solely responsible for the decision to begin the school year remotely. I appreciate the board's confidence in my leadership, but at some point in a crisis as we're dealing with, it requires a leader to take responsibility, and the responsibility as we move forward rests with me. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we're asking the board to consider the COVID preparedness and response plan. What I'll do now is hand it off to Corey Heisch to hit some of the high points and to ask our school nurse, Tanya Regimont, to talk about some of the things that have changed between our work session and now. We'll answer any questions the board may have, and then we'll ask for their approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaner. And as you touched on, as required as part of Michigan's return to school roadmap, Rochester must adopt a COVID-19 preparedness and response plan that lays out how, as a district, we will cope with the disease across the various phases that the state of Michigan can be in the Safe Start plan. The preparedness plan was covered in great detail during our previous work session on how we plan to mitigate risk as best as possible. The template that we used was provided by the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators and the General Education Leadership Network. Again, this is a required part of the Executive Order 2020-142. And the preparedness plan provides details on how we'll meet the requirements as laid out in that executive order, but also gives us the ability to remain adaptable and flexible based on local health conditions and guidance from local health departments. If you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The areas that are covered within that template, and again, that were shared during our work session, focus on the following areas: the continuity of learning. And in the response plan, it specifically speaks to alternative modes of instruction other than in person that can take place. So we created the fully online RCS virtual campus, and then we also created a more rigorous and robust remote learning platform in case local health conditions do not allow us to meet in person. Other areas covered were face coverings, hygiene, cleaning, athletics, and with athletics, of course, we're taking guidance from the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and that is changing rapidly. Screening and testing, you may remember that when we presented during the work session, a key part of the roadmap is that you follow the guidance provided by your local health department. We received that guidance late last week from our Oakland County Health Department, and Tanya Regimont will speak a little bit to what we learned in that document, and then also transportation. Other considerations. Rochester will continue to monitor the recommended and strongly recommended measures in the return to school roadmap to implement when logistically feasible or when guidance is given by our local health department. It's important to remember that while in-person instruction is permitted with required safety protocols in phase 4, schools can consider the judgment of local health conditions of the subregion. 2 early childhood pieces, one that we're still getting some clarity on. Our Great Start Readiness Program, which is part of a grant-funded early childhood program, that has to follow the K12 plan. So that will be treated a little differently than tuition-based preschool and then other childcare options that we have to consider. And again, other pre-K programming and licensed childcare operations may be impacted by constantly updated guidance between LARA, which is the state licensing agency for childcare, and the return to school roadmap. And again, when I turn it over to Tanya, she'll be able to speak to kind of a change that we had last week. So with that being said, let me hand it over to Tanya Regimart, one of our district nurses.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, hello. So I just wanted to briefly summarize how we incorporate the Oakland County Health Division's requirements and how that aligns with the State of Michigan roadmap and the goals that were presented to us from the State Department by Dr. Khaldun. And so there are 5 goals that are needed for us to move into phase 5, which is the containment phase. The first is to ensure less than 10 cases per million per day, decrease positive tests below 3% with steady maintenance over some time, maintain a low hospitalization rate, maintain a low death rate, and ensure testing capacity is what it needs to be to keep those cases where they need to be. So when we look at those goals and compare to the data that we have available to us that is believed to be true and factual, the current status as of today is that we have not met that benchmark. But according to the Oakland County Health Division, they measure their data on a 30-day period. So if we break down the zip codes that are in, most of the zip codes that are within the Rochester Community Schools, you can see what these numbers look like and how it compares to the State of Michigan goals. I'm ready for the next slide. So number 2, decrease those positive tests below 3% with steady maintenance over some time. The State Department's data results that there's been a decrease from 3.7% to 3.4% as of August 5th. Johns Hopkins data reports that the positivity rate is 2.5% as of August 9th, which is below the threshold for reopening, which is 5% for several weeks. So maintaining a low hospitalization rate, right now the hospital systems are not overwhelmed, and we're using data from Region 2 North. 2 North consists of Macomb, Oakland, and St. Clair County, which is the second most populous region in the entire state of Michigan. So this is the bed status as of August 3rd, with 397 ICU beds available and 3,819 regular beds, inpatient beds. And we know that once we hit influenza season, we will have a incredibly difficult time maintaining patient throughput and flow throughout all of the health systems, which influenza overwhelms the healthcare systems every single season. And so we don't know what that will look like when it collides with a second communicable disease, and we're also still in a global pandemic. Death rates remain low. The statistics have significantly declined. However, we still need to trend those cases over 2 weeks, 30 days, and understand that there is lag times in reporting because the death certificates take time to obtain in some cases. And ensuring that the testing capacity is adequate. We are facing some significant barriers to screening and testing. The availability and the use of widespread testing to identify cases is imperative. Right now, testing is free for adults, and it is difficult to get, tests are available, but it can be difficult to get within a timely manner. Testing is limited for pediatrics. It's not, there are currently no facilities within Oakland County that offer free testing, which can seriously be a problem with regards to access and opportunity for those for kids to get tested. There's been significant inaccurate reporting, delayed reporting. So the Oakland County Health Division also has their own barriers to these processes as well. So Oakland County Health Division posts their data online. This is what some of the data pieces look like. As far as daily cases, there's also death counts by day included in these reports. So the Oakland County school districts are required to use guidance from the Oakland County Health Division. And the Oakland County Health Division has been collaborating with schools in an effort to minimize risk so that we can safely open schools. What has changed from the last time we talked is they implemented a K12 Tool Kit, as well as an FAQ, a frequently asked question document that was just posted to just uploaded to their webpage on Saturday. And this toolkit is, this information was paramount for us to make decisions because, again, we have to follow their requirements. And so it's broken down into sections related to prevention, also monitoring, and we didn't know what the health screening requirements were going to look like. Now they are going to require parent screens at home, and parents will have to submit a school health screening acknowledgement form to the school prior to school start, reporting what the school response will be as far as identifying, isolating with supervision within a building. For example, establishing sick versus well waiting rooms until a parent can
Anya, I just want to be clear about a lot of these requirements by the Oakland County Health Division. A lot of it mirrors what's already in the governor's roadmap. Just for the board's digestion, and we continue to work with them closely to get to try to get to a point of more efficiency. For example, in terms of home screening and submitting a form to the schools, you know, again, when we talk about lag time and properly being able to contact trace, that's a significant logistical problem. We're talking about 15,000 kids arriving at school between the hours of, say, 6:45 in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning, and making sure that someone sees those health screening forms. So we continue to work with the health division. It's also important to note that the Oakland County Health Division is the public health officers for Oakland County, and we have no flexibility in which county health division that we follow. Sorry, Tanya, thank you.
That's okay. Also, with those responsibilities, different cases will require different actions. For example, if children are testing, or if they're not testing, if they're symptomatic, if they're not symptomatic. And so we will have to ensure that children and staff members are not coming back to school before they're able to come back to school. So that's and then the Oakland County their responsibilities are the detection, contact tracing, and isolation. And so the frequently asked question document, the FAQ on the Oakland County Health Division website, is helpful in answering some basic questions, but each case is going to be investigated on an individual basis. And there are complexities that come with those cases, such as if you're a parent caring for a baby and you can't isolate yourself from a baby in your home, that scenario may look different than if you live in a home and you're able to isolate yourself from other members of your family and not come in close contact. So there are many complexities. There's also some examples of scenarios in the toolkit that can be helpful, and also provides testing guidance and resources. Different labs are used to produce test results. Different tests are being utilized: antibody testing, antigen testing, molecular diagnostic testing. There still appears to be some confusion about which tests are being administered at different facilities, such as urgent cares. So there's many complexities, but yes, we are continuing to collaborate with the health department on almost a daily basis. So in talking about viral control, our community risk level is moderate to high, which means that infection spread is imminent. And so with our goals of trying to contain this virus, we as a community need to exude personal and practical responsibilities to mitigate those risks. And again, those risks, or those mitigating risks, include wearing your mask correctly, physical distancing, and making responsible choices when in public, staying home when you're sick, not coming into close contact with persons who are sick, and also washing hands often and correctly. So we were given, we learned of the new executive order for universal face covering, 2020-164. Governor Whitmer took just a few minutes to implement this order, but actually executing, it took this district hours, if not days, over the weekend. And so the order is for changes in face coverings for our childcare and summer camp programs. So this is a brief overview of what the actual order looks like. So we are in phase 4. So for children 4 to 11, they are now wearing face masks in common areas and hallways during drop-off pickup times. They do not need to wear masks when they're outside. We do not have transportation in this area, so need to implement those interventions. But children 12 and up are required to wear face coverings during their entire day, other than eating and playing outside or doing any other vigorous exercise.
And Tanya, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is just a great example of what we kind of touched on earlier with how, even though we're presenting to you a plan within a template, and we went in great detail on the 27th, how quickly and fluid the whole dynamic can be as it relates to, the health situation across the whole state, our region, and even in our sub-region. And just some of the language that's used compared to what's in the roadmap and what's in additional executive orders. On the elementary level here, it speaks to children's ages, whereas in the roadmap, it speaks to grades. So if we happen to have a 5th grader who's 12 years old, do we then require that one individual or 2 individuals, or however small it may be based on age, to wear a face covering during the duration of their day? So again, another reminder of the complexity that we're working under, and another reminder of how quickly and fluid the guidance can change, and we'll have to react to it and respond to it.
So what we did to make sure that we were following the governor's order, and that we wanted to make sure that we resumed safe operations at caring steps, we were able to supply the building with a limited stock of pediatric face coverings. We didn't have a lot of time, but we did place an additional order and anticipate that we will have that stock by tomorrow. An initial notification letter was sent to the parents last week by the program supervisors. And then we also have a detailed guidance and a FAQ document that will be distributed tomorrow. And one of the concerns was safety, obviously, was foremost, and making sure that kids weren't put into positions of any sort of suffocation or choking risks when wearing face coverings. We didn't know if these children had experience in wearing face coverings for long periods of time. And so we then needed to make sure that our staff were supported in how they were going to help children throughout the programs.
And if I may interject, Tom, and thank you for giving that overview. As you saw, that executive order just went into play this morning at 12:01. And so the dedicated staff did make arrangements, and we've been working through the weekend to get the accurate information to make sure our kids are safe. When we've had precautionary commitments, we have contacted parents, and we're working very closely with the and Oakland County Health Department. So as fluid as the situation is, we're being as responsive, and we're very grateful to have not only a school nurse, but we have a team that's learning to navigate through in this new environment. And certainly the partnership with the parent is essential in this. Thank you, Tana.
And thank you. And with that, I will turn it back over to our Board of Education to see if they have any questions for us.
Thanks so much. So, and just to clarify for the board again, and for anyone who's watching, what was just presented just now, and just also to make sure I have this correctly, what was just presented just now, these were updates. This is what was new since last Monday night, essentially. So in 1 week, so everything that was presented, I think there was a 100 PowerPoint slides last week. Thank you very much. So these are the updates to that. So yes, essentially, so what I need to do is before we discuss anything, I need to put a motion on the table to approve the RCS COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. This is a plan that will be submitted to the state of Michigan. The deadline for this is, I believe, August 15th. Correct me if I'm wrong. And every school district under the governor's return to school plan was asked to submit basically fill out a form, essentially a standard form talking about our protocols and what will happen when we return to school. And so what we're approving tonight will be that plan, which is based on the materials presented last Monday and today. I got that right. Okay. So I'll take and I think we can stop the slides briefly. I'll take a motion to approve the plan, the RCS COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Moved by Kevin, supported by Barb. And discussion, and we'll start with board discussion, and then if any community members have any discussion, you can go ahead and hit the raise hand button in Zoom, and we will unmute you one by one. But just a reminder that this is, it's a formality. It's something that we're required to do, knowing that all of this could change in a week. So, and I'll start with board questions or comments. I'll call on, I feel like Scott, I feel like you're ready to talk there.
Oh, hey, thanks for putting me on the spot there.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate it, Kristen. I would tell you that first thing that comes first is no matter how any of this goes based on circumstances that you can't control, there's always going to be, individuals that aren't going to feel good about it. And one of the things that started off this conversation that Dr. Shaner threw out there that I thought was amazing was just the leadership component. you know, there's a lot of people out there in the private sector. There's a lot of people in the community. There's a lot of people running families that don't step up the way they should from a leadership perspective. When I say that, I mean a person that just steps out there and says, listen, I'm the one making the call here, being accountable for it. There's a lot of moving targets here. And I would tell you that when you look at everything and the complexities of it, it's not an easy decision and it's very complex. And I think that the things that I'm seeing when I look at just the new information that's come across today, what you just shared, and the things that we've heard in the past, I mean, you're talking about making a competent decision off the information that you have and honoring the community and everyone else involved with honoring them with the truth and candor. And I think that's what everyone expects. Again, not everyone's going to be happy about it, but I think when you're talking about keeping the best interest of mind of everyone involved, with logic involved, and moving forward the right way in the weeks and months to come, I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, hey, listen, all of you on this call right now, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you're doing and how you're doing it, because I know it's not easy. And every turn that you have, there's a new boogeyman around the corner, a new complexity that's there to figure out. And like you said, Kristen, in a week from now, a lot of this could change because who knows what all the information is going to come down the pipe. So more or less, I don't have a question on it right now because a lot of this information it's not a ton of new stuff in comparison to what we had, but so far, so good when I see what we've got going on right now and what's involved in all of this. So just thanks for everybody, what you're doing so far.
Thanks, Scott. Michelle.
Well, I had a question and then I have some comments, but I wondered, since we have received Oakland County Health Department information, will this document be updated?
Yeah, I can answer that. It will be. To be completely candid with the board, we're not in a position with the Oakland County's protocols at this point that we're comfortable with. We're still working with Oakland schools and with the Oakland County Health Department to get to a more functional level. Like I mentioned, with things like health screening, those things aren't any good if no one's looking at them. And that's a place we need to get to. So I'm committed to continuing the collaboration, and we'll update the plan as we get those protocols and get them to a place where they're more functional. But unfortunately, at this point, we're not there yet.
Kristen, can I go ahead and just make some comments at this point?
Oh yeah, yep, go ahead, sure.
And I did write out some of my notes just so I hopefully wouldn't babble too much and not lose track of what I wanted to say. But I wanted to thank the COVID task force, the administrators, the teachers, and the parents who have been serving and working on this, working on the plan to keep our students and staff safe, dating back to February, and who continue to identify what we can do to serve our community in the best way possible. To me, this required preparedness plan does not reflect the complexity or the myriad of details that you've all been working on. So I thank you all for going above and beyond for us and appreciate that you're continuing to work on it. Next, I'd like the community to know that we strive to meet the needs of all of our students and families, and this weighs heavily on the board, the administration, and the staff. We know that many count on the schools to be a safe haven for their children while they are working. And for those families that going remote creates a burden, I am truly sorry. We also understand that in-person instruction is the best form of instruction for the majority of our students and families. But we are also tasked with taking into consideration the health and well-being of our students, staff, and community. We will continue to work towards being able to bring everyone safely back into our schools. I also know that there's been a lot of frustration because the district has not been able to provide all the answers to your questions. And please know that we are frustrated too. We have had to approve a budget without knowing what our funding will be or what model of instruction we will have. We've had to try and make plans to return to school without having the direction we needed from the health department. We have limited resources of people, funding, and the availability of things like cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, and plexiglass. We want the same answers that our families want, and I wish that we had a crystal ball to be able to see what those answers are. But with all the things I don't know, here's what I do know. All decisions are being made with our students and staff's best interest. Our main priority is their safety and trying to identify what we feel is best for all. I can guarantee that it's not going to be perfect, but we are doing our best. We continue to ask for patience and understanding. Our teachers are getting ready to support and teach our children. Our children follow our lead on how they respond to the situations they're in. If our parents are positive and supportive of the learning environment that we're in, then I believe our students will be able to thrive. This will be a different year than any of us have ever seen. I know it's not easy, but I'm going to try and take my own advice, and I hope you will too, and attempt to remain flexible and open to new ways of learning, and try to look at all the positive things that are happening in the midst of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Barb. Oh, Barb, you're on mute. We're going to come back to you. Barb, we'll come back to you. We're going to, I'm going to call on Andrea.
Thank you. Just a question and then a couple of comments. I think just one question. Let me look at my notes. The document that we are sending to the state, are they also getting the presentation that that was presented to us, or do they just get the document that they need filled out?
The document gets downloaded into a website. From there, I don't know where it goes. I can tell you that all of our local leaders in the legislature have a copy of our PowerPoint, including our federal leaders, Haley Stevens, Alyssa Slotkin, our local leaders, Michael Weber, and representatives from the governor's office. So we continue to advocate for the district and try to communicate our needs, but the plan gets downloaded into a website.
Okay, and then that's made public?
I assume that it would be. It'll be, of course, a public record as part of this meeting, but I would assume at some point the state's going to make all those plans public.
Okay, so our parents will be able to see both the presentation that we've been presenting to them over the last months, as well as this document that's getting uploaded to the state.
Yep, the presentation from our work session is on our website, and I would also encourage people. Michelle mentioned funding. We are without a 2021 school budget. We don't anticipate one soon. I would encourage folks that if they're not aware of how schools are funded in Michigan, to also look at our budget explainer and get boned up on that. A lot of questions over the weekend about property taxes, and funding in Michigan is not supported by property taxes. It's supported by sales tax from the state.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got a couple of comments, first as a board member and then as a board member who is also a parent. First and foremost, just a reminder for all of us, the board's role, because I like to remind us of that. You know, we put trust in the administration that we oversee. The board's role is oversight and policy, which means we oversee this team. We oversee Dr. Shaner, who oversees his team, and we approve the policies that they put forth. None of us here are experts. We're elected officials that the community trusts to oversee our district. We're parents, we're passionate people. We are grateful that Dr. Shaner is willing to, you know, to take the brunt of making this decision. But for sure, we support him, and we support the superintendent that we oversee. So as a board member, you know, we don't take that lightly. We have sleepless nights, just like every other person on this team. We're just as worried about the 15,000 kids in this district as everyone else is. And as a board member, you know, I think Michelle said it great. You know, we are so sorry that this is the fall season that we're going into with our kids. We would love to be able to offer a better option. We are left with a project management task that does not have anything we need to get the project done and keep our kids safe. Do we need a little more time? Yeah. Do we need this entire school district's patience? Yeah. Do we need you to explain to your kids that there are sometimes things that are just out of our control? Yeah. So as a board member, just speaking to our parents and to our district, then yeah, with things that are changing every single day on the state level and on the country level, we can't do more than the quick changes that are happening. As a parent, I will say, I sit in this seat and there are a lot of days where I wish that I was just a parent and I could just, make this decision solely as a parent without knowing the task of the 15,000 that we're tasked with. I can't imagine 15,000 kids being able to go back with equitable education in this function safely. No corporation is able to do that yet. No company in our state is back at a 15,000 person level in their buildings. And no government entity that is publicly funded certainly is able to do that. So as a parent, I'm reminding myself of that. But I'm also really able to feel the pain that our parents are feeling. My son starts kindergarten this year. I am with you in the grieving that you all are doing over the fact that he will not walk into his first day of school as I think he should. And as I think every kid should get to. I don't think that he can in a pandemic situation that we're facing. There are countless boards in our state making this decision tonight, who haven't already, who will in the coming weeks, who will after they start school because there's no function to do this. So as a parent, I'm just reminding myself of that and reminding myself that we will do what we can. My job is to be a parent. My job is to make sure that my kid gets what they need. I want to stress to all of us that we are teaching our kids right now what adversity and picking ourselves up and figuring out what to do when we can't control a situation looks like. We are teaching our kids what grace in any situation looks like, and we're teaching them how to respond. I have a 5-year-old who's learning how to wear a face mask. Do I hate it every single time? Yep. Did I send him to our CS summer camp today in a face mask for the first time? Yeah. Did I cry on the way home? Yeah. But do I know that's the safest option for him? Yeah. I'm going to trust the leadership at hand. I said months ago, I'm going to say again, and I'll close, I don't understand the logistics behind why my 5-year-old needs to be in a car seat still, but some experts do. And they tell me that it's important. They tell me that that's what's supposed to happen, and so important that they've made it a law. So I'm going to trust and choose to trust and teach my son that that's our job as parents, is to teach him what things are important. So very long comment tonight, but I feel really passionate about this. And would I love if we were making other decisions? I think we all would. Every single person on this call would. But I'm right alongside our community, grieving the situation that we're in, and we will continue to do the best thing we can within the situation we're in for our kids.
Thanks, Andrea. I also just wanted to mention that I asked our administrators to shut down the ability for the attendees to chat with us because personally, I don't need any, I think the feedback's great. Personal attacks, not so much. So if anyone has anything personal to say to myself or any of the board members, you know how to find us. So next, Kevin Beers.
Thanks, Kristen. Man, this whole thing is so much more complex than just, and I'm not minimizing that at all, but it's so much more complex than simply the impact of the virus on children. I wish the decision was only based on that. There's so many levels of complexity, as Michelle and Dr. Shaner alluded to. So many levels of complexity to this. It can boggle the mind, literally. And there's nothing simple about the complications that the pandemic has caused in terms of running this organization and trying to balance everything into a decision like this. So there's just so much to it. And I think that, that needs to be kept in mind as well. Michelle and Dr. Shaner also mentioned the budget, and I want to echo that. It's our administration has already asked to do the impossible almost, and layer in the fact that they're asked to do it with no idea of how much money is going to be involved. And that has to complicate things. It simply has to. So that's a part of it. I have no idea how many parts there are to it, but every week I see that it's a lot more than I thought it was the week before. So I guess those are the main points that I wanted to make. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Mike?
Is Barb, were you going to try and bring Barb back in? Or
No,
she can't?
No, we're good.
Okay. Well, so I guess I want to take a moment to thank the task force that's been working so hard since February. I wish they were here tonight. I should have made these comments for them when they were here last time. Getting everything ready in time for the start of school, with all the different pathways that we've made available, that was a gargantuan task. And I know we have teachers that have really poured their hearts and souls into this effort. I recognize that teaching is an art. You have a curriculum as a roadmap, but how you teach it changes as a function of the students and the schedule and the environment. It's hard enough to figure out how to make your in-person lessons work with all of the restrictions that we're putting in place. And then we pile on that they need to pivot to remote at a moment's notice, or vice versa. I'm sure it's causing them a lot of stress. Oh, and we need you to develop a new, set of virtual classes too. Something that should take years. They got that done in a couple of months. And that's really an accomplishment. So thank you all for your dedication to your craft and to the students of this district. Thank you also to the administrators and staff, and even some parents that have worked tirelessly, planning for every eventuality. You guys really have thought of everything. And it's unfortunate that there are no easy answers, but I'm certain that all the planning you've done, all the thinking that you've put into this will pay off as we get into the school year. We've said over and over again that this is a complex problem. And most of you know, I'm very particular about describing a problem as complex, right? As opposed to just complicated. This is indeed a complex problem. And as you know, because it's complex, we have to allow for changing initial conditions and emergent behavior and expect that there will be unintended consequences. Remember that a solution that works today might not work 2 weeks from now because circumstances have changed. Complexity doesn't lend itself to a one-size-fits-all solution. We have to be prepared to adjust our approach, informed by constant feedback from all of our stakeholders. I know you live this every day, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I wanted to acknowledge that you're in this battle, and we trust you, and we support you. So to be clear, our goal is to get back to normal as soon as possible. And by normal, I mean how it was before the pandemic. What that really means is getting to phase 6 as soon as possible. And to do that, we have to stop the transmission of the virus everywhere, not just in our schools. But our job is to do our part here. We are currently in phase 4, and the guidance we have for this phase is that we can have in-person instruction with safeguards in place so kids, teachers, and staff don't get infected in school. We don't want our schools to become virus-spreading facilities. We don't want our classes to be virus-spreading events. We all need to take that seriously. We don't want anyone to catch this virus in our schools. This means that even if people come into our schools already infected, we expect our processes and procedures to prevent the spread of that infection. And that's a tall order, but that's what we all expect from this district. It's going to take everyone working together to make it work. We can't get out of phase 4 if we don't all pitch in and do our part. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to wrap this up. Agree with my colleagues on all of their points, especially on Kevin Beer's point about the budget and the uncertainty there. I think there are a lot of people that are in our community, parents that are very eager to get their kids back in the classroom. And I do think that, we have to appreciate that. I appreciate it because it shows how much the community values education and the student-teacher relationships. I think it also shows the trust the community has in the administration's commitment to keep their children safe. Because I don't believe any of the parents out there are saying, I want my children in school and I'm not worried about them getting sick. They want their kids in school because they trust that we will keep them safe. So I've heard it said, and I've read some comments that we are just being too cautious. We're being overly cautious. So as parents, all of us, and I've said this before, between us, we have 14 kids, all 7 of us. And as parents, we look out for the best interests of our kids. So for me, that's 2 kids. For some people, it's 3 or 4 or more. So the administration has to look out for 15,000 kids. That's the RCS community. As a parent, when you consider the risk of the virus to your children, it doesn't seem like you have to worry if 99.99% of the time the kids will be all right. But it's that 0.01% of 15,000 that means 1 or 2 of our kids will not be all right. And that's not okay. We consider that very seriously. So I would just ask the community, and I know my colleagues have said this, but I'll say it again, please be patient. Trust that we will do everything in our power to keep all children safe. Trust that our teachers and our administrators and staff will work diligently to continue to deliver a world-class education to your children, regardless of the setting. And again, thank you for letting us serve you and letting us serve the community. I'm going to call on some members of some attendees who've been waiting very patiently. So what happens is when I click on you, you will unmute, you'll pop into this gallery here. We won't see your picture, we will only hear you. So I'm gonna, so I see some hands raised. And I don't think I'm able to unmute them. I don't know if Christina, if that's something you can do.
I can't, but Karen, can you?
Oh, I can now. Okay, got it. Elizabeth Whitton, sorry, I was gonna let you know. Let me unmute you. Elizabeth, you're on.
Hey, good evening. I really appreciate you having this special meeting tonight and giving us all a chance to talk. I want to first say thank you for the tons of communication that we've had since this all started, because that has been one strong source of actually comfort of, as things are known, you're communicating, you're making decisions. And as a parent and as a worker in a large company, I appreciate the over communication versus no communication. So that's been very comforting. So I want to thank you all for that. Number two, I'm disappointed that we're not going back. My rising senior is disappointed that we are not going back, but I'm very confident, and I've been explaining to him that I'm confident the teachers are going to deliver a very quality education to him. So holding out hope that everything is going to go very well, but somewhat anxious, as most rising senior parents are, considering how they ended junior year and then preparing for college. But my question is, given the data, which I really appreciate, Tanya, on the hospital beds and our decision to hold kids at home until October 1, and that is the start of flu season, do we really think that October 1 is going to happen? Or does there need to be, how soon are we going to make a decision that no, they're staying home for the whole first semester? I just learned yesterday that Bloomfield Hills has made a decision to keep their kids home for the entire first semester and will reevaluate in January. So I hadn't seen the hospital bed data until tonight, and I found that very insightful, and therefore I thought I'd ask that question. My other question is, I've seen us mention a number of times in the material communications that there will be a plan to provide social mental check-ins, and yet I've not heard anything about what that's really going to look like, and I haven't read it, and I apologize if I've missed it in all of the wonderful communications, but I'm really lost as to what that element of our education plan is going to look like for our students. My third question is I have a real concern for parents, thank you, that are not able to stay home with sick children, and what that plan is. And Barb, this is not to put you on the spot, but probably more of something at our state level of what are we going to do to support those families that really can't afford to stay home with sick children, and that therefore then impacts our educational systems across the entire state, not just Rochester. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And I'll say that those are all good questions, and we are working on all of that, and we'll be further communicating. Thank you for acknowledging our communications. We'll be further communicating the answers to those questions for our entire community, because I think you're not alone in asking those. So thank you. I'm going to bring in Marcus.
Well, thank you for allowing me the chance to speak. First, let me just thank you for all the time and effort you've put in, not just tonight, but through the entire summer, through all of this, and also that there are no great decisions to be made in all of this. So I respect the fact that there really aren't going to be any great decisions for you to come out of any of this situation. In addition to that, as the son of two public school teachers with lots of other public school teachers in my family, I will respect the heck out of all of the people that work in our public schools and help care for our children every single day. And my prayers go out to all of you who have to go through this along with our children. The only thing that I felt the need to bring up as a pediatrician and in response to a couple of the comments is just a little bit of perspective on behalf of the children. And again, to clarify, all of the people that work and exist and have to be in and out of the school, and all the people that live with our children and interact with us are certainly at risk. But the perspective for our children, as people have brought up a few times about the risk for our children, is with the latest data published by the American Academy of Pediatrics, that our children are still several times more likely to experience serious illness from the flu, even in every other year. So regarding this, that is not true for adults. It's not true for school workers or our families or the people our children will expose and infect. It is true they will spread and infect. But it is true for our kids. And I just want to correct some of the fear that gets spread for our parents about the risk for our children. The risk for our children from this is still significantly low. And in terms of our children specifically, if our children can't go to school because of their risk, then they really can't ever go to school because the risk is still greater for those other types of infections. I just perspective clear, while we still have to consider that they will spread to all those other people, and that is still a significant administrators and school workers and our community. But
Marcus, you're
it is my
Marcus, you're
role
breaking up a
to
little bit.
help make
Sorry to interrupt
decisions on
you.
behalf of kids. No, I apologize. So I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make that part clear.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to let you know you were breaking up a little bit. So thank you. Appreciate it. Courtney. Courtney, you're on.
Good evening, everyone. This is Courtney and Patrick Butcher. How you doing?
Good.
Good. So first of all, the first lady that posed a couple of questions, she posed 3 questions. I'm just curious if you're going to answer those, or if we're going to get answers to any of our questions, or if you're just going to say that we'll answer your questions at a later date. I'm very curious to know the answer to her first question. How likely is October 1st going to be, or is this just going to be an instance where you kids keep kicking the can down the road?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll answer the question by saying that all of this is fluid, and some of the questions that Elizabeth had asked we're not quite sure of just yet. I don't think we're I wouldn't call working with kids kicking down our can down the road. You know, I think we spoke to a few things that we need to see change before October 1st. So,
Madam President, I'll be happy to call Mr. and Mrs. Butcher first thing in the morning.
okay, thank you. And Andrew. Andrew, I think you're on. I think you need to unmute.
Yes, I'd like to understand when the standard became not one single kid could become infected or one single person. That is an absolute unrealistic standard that would ever be maintained. And to the point earlier, and our schools never should be open because, again, more kids are at risk from the flu. That's why I think many parents are frustrated, because that just absolutely makes no sense whatsoever.
Thanks for your comment. Appreciate it.
When did the standard?
Lori. Lori, you're on. I think you need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you just go through the list of what needs to change in order to return to school?
We can get with you tomorrow. Someone from administration can call you and go over that list with you for sure.
I mean, I sort of want a number that we as parents can look to say, okay, we're a little bit closer to that number, or we're nowhere near that number, so that we can plan for our kids as far as more of a long-term goal, as opposed to walking on eggshells and wondering if come October 1, our kids are not going to go back to school and it's going to be another month. I would just like the numbers that I can be informed of, so that I can, make more informed decisions when it comes to how I want to approach my kids' education going forward. And then, so I'm more informed in knowing what you're looking at in order for you to make the determination of when my kids can continue to be educated on campus.
Yeah, and I appreciate your concern, and I think all of us would like to know the answers to those questions, and I think they're very fluid. Again, we would be happy to, I would have someone call you and talk you through this, and we've been communicating pretty much, 2 or 3 times a day with the community through various channels to try to keep them updated on that. I think that's a really good question that unfortunately we just don't have clarity on right now. I wish there was a number that we could put on, a target number we could put out there, or a target criteria that we could put out there. I think everyone here wishes the same. So
So
again,
are you saying that if we get to level or phase 5, that even that there are other considerations that would keep our kids off of campus?
Madam President, I'll be happy to call her in the morning and discuss that with her. Thank you.
okay. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it. So I am gonna, if there are no other board member comments, I'm gonna call for a vote on the RCS COVID-19 preparedness plan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yay!
So all of those in favor of the plan as presented by administration, please voice your agreement by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That is a 7-0 vote. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is item 2 under new business, which is a proposal for remote learning instruction, pupil accounting, non-conventional membership.
Yes.
And that is going to be presented, I believe, by Karen Gilardi.
That is correct, Kristen. Thank you.
Welcome, Karen. Thanks.
So, Lori, thank you. So for pupil accounting updates, a local or intermediate school district's state aid is based on membership counts of eligible pupils legally enrolled on or before the specified count day. A pupil's eligibility for membership purposes is based on enrollment, age, residency, class schedule, and attendance. Based on current statutes, including the State School Aid Act and Revised School Code, and the Return to School map requires we be prepared to offer alternative modes of instruction other than in person, such as temporary remote, when in-person is impacted by local health conditions, and virtual. This is also referenced in the pupil accounting manual as instruction and for non-conventional pupils. This simply means the instruction is at not in person, face-to-face, and it could be through distance or a virtual learning. As part of the manual's guidelines, we are seeking the board's approval to offer temporary remote and virtual instruction. By offering these types of instruction, we have the ability to receive full membership count for all students. So at this time, I'd like to read our proposal. The proposal for remote virtual learning instruction. Currently, the Michigan State School Aid Act and the Revised School Code pupil accounting requirements request the board approve the district's plan to offer remote and virtual instruction for RCS students kindergarten through 12th grade. Remote instruction is defined as synchronous or live instruction occurring via two-way communication between the teacher and a group of pupils. Virtual instruction is defined as instruction that may occur synchronously or asynchronously through a digital learning environment. Virtual learning provides the students some control over the time, location, and pacing of their learning. Courses offered virtually are indicated in the course catalog for grades K through 12. These courses are instructed by RCS teachers and have been previously approved by the board. We are seeking the board's approval to offer both remote and virtual instruction to RCS families.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. Board member questions. First, I'd like to take a motion to approve the proposal for remote learning and instruction so that we can discuss it. Moved by Michelle, seconded by Mike. Discussion or questions? So as I understand this, Karen, and thank you for explaining that this is a formality, but I do think this is a really great opportunity to talk about pupil accounting and this idea of seat time waivers. So we talk about seat time waivers a lot, and we've talked about it a lot recently, and sometimes we forget that not everyone, that's jargon that not everyone knows exactly what that means. So I think that the community would really appreciate it if we sort of describe that for them as far as not only what it means in a normal school year, but what it might mean in this school year and sort of why we needed to to take up this proposal tonight.
So Madam President, if I could start out conceptually, and I think Karen can probably fill in the details and the nitty gritty of the pupil accounting regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So when the governor, when the supplemental budget bill was passed, the seat time waiver that was put in place through executive order was extended till October 1st. What a seat time waiver does essentially is allows us to offer instruction in some other way besides a child sitting at a desk in a school building and still be funded for it. Someone previously asked about the October 1st date that we chose. The October 1st date actually coincides as that is the day that as we shift into the 2021 fiscal year, we could potentially lose our seat time waiver and our pupil accounting regulations could change. I think it's important for the board to realize that we have come to understand that the pupil accounting regulations, particularly in a virtual environment, will be enforced very strictly. So we want to make sure that we have every I dotted and every T crossed in terms of pupil accounting regulations. It's also important, again, to note, we have a 19-20 budget that the board passed. We do not have a 2021 budget moving forward, and we do not have pupil accounting regulations moving forward. We also do not have any waiver from state testing at that point. You may have heard some leaders saying that they want to have benchmark testing within the first 60 to 90 days that kids return to school. That is something that continues to be discussed. It's something that in terms of what was brought up in terms of social and emotional health, my concern would be is we need to attend to kids in terms of the whole person when we get back to return in-person instruction. So, you know, when we have standardized testing remains to be seen, particularly at the lower grades. But for a seat time waiver, again, that is a waiver, so we do not have to account for kids, do pupil accounting in terms of days and hours. And Karen or Beth, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the number is 1090 and 180 under our current collective bargaining agreement. And we are at this point have a waiver to that. We will see what happens after October 1st. Again, I didn't want to send a message to the community that we are closed for business. The reality of it is everyone on this call, everyone that works for this school district, everyone that cares and loves kids and loves working with kids wants to be in school. Having said that, we've got to make sure that we absolutely don't add to risks, but mitigate risks. So we will continue to make decisions on a day by day, week by week, hour by hour basis at some point, and continue to plan forward and try to meet the needs of every one of our kids. I certainly understand with having 3 children of my own that this is an enormous, enormous challenge, particularly for us that are working parents. But it's imperative, again, I appreciate, I've talked to so many folks that are concerned and so worried about their children and what that looks like. But we also have to err on the side of caution, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everyone that has an individual opinion about the virus and how it might manifest itself is right. But I pledge to you, as we talk about seat time waivers and remote learning and having to shift to that and getting to in-person instruction as quickly as possible, that we are going to do it in as safe a manner as possible because we care about your kids and we love you kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Shaner. Karen, did you have anything to add to the explanation? Or, okay.
I think that covered everything.
Thank you. Any board member questions or comments? Andrea, do you have, I can't.
Just one question, yeah. So with the change over to, with this waiver, saying that we can do this remotely and have in-seat be counted as remote, am I explaining that as a layperson correctly? Karen?
So
essentially, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of it is normally we would be required to have what we call butts and seats.
Yep.
And this, but again, what we're asking you to do is applicable only through October 1st at this point.
Right. And then we would reevaluate at that time, like we're reevaluating everything else.
Well, we would hope that we have a budget for the school year at that time. We would hope we have more clear and implementable health guidelines, and that we have more data at that point in terms of the virus, as well as other things that we're dealing with to make that decision.
Okay.
Again, I think what's critically important here, no one's, the uncertainty of this is what drives us all nuts, right? If we think back to last March, you know, the governor's going to speak on March 30th. We're going to hear on April 15th. And I'm sure she's as probably frustrated as the rest of us. And I know in talking to Michael Weber and our other lawmakers, they're frustrated too, because the reality of it is we don't know. But we're trying to do this incrementally in a way where we can pursue our vision. And our vision is to get kids back to in-person instruction as normally as possible. When we think about the governor's roadmap in phase 4, and as you know, I was part of that Return to School Advisor Council and continue to serve on that council. I think we've got to have a little bit of a dose of reality that in our current conditions, nothing's going to look normal. Social distancing in a high school is not normal. 4 or 5 different lunch periods is not normal. Not having a normal passing time doesn't feel normal to kids. So those are things that we've got to consider moving forward, and in the multitude of complexities, particularly as they also pertain to working conditions and keeping our staff safe as well.
So along with that, just so I'm understanding, and probably other parents, that regulation is part of the reason that we need to be taking attendance and having some more of that rigorous accounting to ensure that these kids are, rather than butts in seats, face on screens.
That's correct. We'll be taking attendance. There'll be grades. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Good questions. Anyone else? Any member of the public wish to comment on this item, on this proposal? I am going to unmute, I'm going to move Patrick in. Patrick, you're going to need to unmute.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you know, I actually live somewhere where the internet service is not that great. Obviously, one of your board members couldn't even speak on the call today. How are you going to help the children learn in this virtual environment when they really can't operate email, computers, links? They haven't really been taught any of that. And frankly, they're the touchscreen generation. I mean, I tried this back in March, and I'll tell you, it wasn't good. It was not the learning materials. It was the avenue on which they were supposed to learn. They cannot operate computers. So what plan do you have immediately to get these kids able to operate a computer? My 3rd grader, my 6th grader don't even know what a web browser is. They don't understand logins. They don't understand Gmail. There's so many fundamentals you're throwing at them that they just don't have. And I know this was all a surprise for us, but we have to start with square one. They need to learn how to learn virtually, because right now they can't. So what are the plans as far as that kind of training? I mean, it might put arithmetic and reading and writing aside, but until they know how to operate a computer, it's really not effective for them.
Yeah, I appreciate that question a lot, and I appreciate your comments. And I think that, you know, this is something that we're all going to be working through as a school community over the next couple of months. I think that for you personally, I would ask one of our administrators to reach out to you tomorrow to talk a little bit further about, you know, even your situation. But this is definitely something that we're aware of and will need to be working on, and will be communicated in the days to come for sure. Thank you. Sarah? Oh, I'm sorry. I misread that. I don't have my glasses on. Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for taking my question. So I have one comment. I don't think the standards are so high. I don't think this year we will be able to go to school. But I was wondering why we have not thought of a hybrid version where maybe a couple of days a week the kids could attend the school, or maybe alternative week, and then the other days they could be learning online.
Madam President, I'd be happy to call him in the morning and we can talk about that.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Dr. Shaner. And that is a really good question. And, I think we've been communicating a little bit about our process, and it really does include this pupil accounting as well. But, we'll get more information to you. Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised, so I will call for a vote on this proposal for remote learning instruction, pupil accounting non-conventional membership as presented. All those in favor of the proposal say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That is a 7-0 vote. And that is all of the board business we have for tonight. Additional business, we have 3 items, including citizens present at the meeting. I don't know if anyone who has just called in or if anyone wishes to speak on something maybe that we covered earlier or that wasn't on the agenda. Now would be your chance to click the raise hand button and speak. And in the meantime, I'll call on members of the administration. Do you have any comments?
Sorry about that. I'm having unmute issues today. I apologize. Again, Madam President, members of the board, members of the community, I want to make sure we extend gratitude to our entire team. I was lucky enough to be raised by giants, uncles and aunts that were hardworking people that were direct and spoke the truth and set that example. One of those people that in my life that did that probably more than others was my godmother. And she often talked about actions speak louder than words. She was also really good at laying on some really heavy guilt. I remember going to see her when she was getting into her 90s. I used to call her the hippest 90-year-old lady I knew. And I'd say, Aunt Louise, I'll be back to see you next week. And she'd say, we'll see, Bob. Actions speak louder than words. And that was like a dagger, but it also held me accountable and taught me that actions speak louder than words. Why do I tell you this story? I understand that there's a multitude of frustration in the community. I understand that people are fearful of the uncertainty. They're fearful of the impact economically and socially that it has on their family and their kids. And I'm sorry that we're all going through this. But I want to assure our community, the love is real. The concern is real. An entire team of people continue to work tirelessly to try to pull this off and have a really, really excellent outcome for our kids, both remotely and in person. So I'm blessed to work with a whole team of people whose actions speak louder than words. It's not easy to listen to the consternation in the community, and some folks manifested their consternation better than others and are able to communicate more cogently than others. But I want whoever does communicate, whoever expresses that frustration, I want you to know we know that it's real and we hear you. But I also want you to know that the people on this call and your teachers and your administrators are working diligently and care deeply about your kids. A while back, one of our teachers wrote an article in Scene magazine. See if I can get to it here. And it says this: regardless of whether we're in person or online, one thing's for sure. While this year will most certainly be different in details, the love stays the same. I just needed to say that out loud, ladies and gentlemen. When we talk about the budget and revenue estimating and how that impacts our bottom line and how we have to plan for it, that's all very, very important. But we also have to keep the main thing, and keep kids focused at the center of every decision that we make. Thank you, Madam President.
Thanks, Dr. Shaner. Any other administrator comments?
Yes, good evening, Kristen. Thank you to the Board of Ed this evening and to our panelists who have joined the conversation to bring forward the most relevant and timely data that we could to try to articulate that we are truly invested in ensuring that we have accurate information. As Dr. Shaner has eloquently said, relationships are, actions do matter, and we are truly invested to ensure that we can bring our kids back to school as soon as possible. We all want the same thing when it comes to that. So I think that's important to say. Safety is always our first priority. And we know that we're not alone in making these difficult decisions. We'd like to thank those of you who have spoken out. We empathize. We're sorry for your frustration. All of us are experiencing a world pandemic that we've never experienced before. And we appreciate your patience and your grace. And we appreciate how you're modeling that for your children. That will serve us all well when we get to the other side of this experience. In the meantime, there's a lot of really amazing things happening. And something that one of the comments was, what about social learning? That was such a big component of our work. And I assure you, our counselors and social workers and our administrators and teachers have developed an abundance of resources and work, and preparing that to be embedded into our curriculum. We're looking at the first few weeks of school on how we're going to work with technology for children to be able to adapt and face the trauma of the experience that they have been in. I'd also like to share that our equity, inclusion, and belonging work continues to be instrumental and equally a priority for us. We have been offering different opportunities for our community and will continue to do so. And it all is the foundation of what we believe, that we have a significant responsibility to make a profound impact on the lives of your children. And that's exactly what you can expect. And we guarantee that we will provide that even in a circumstance that we don't have all the answers. So I just want to thank everyone who's participated and for your input. We value what you say. We understand there's a lot of complexity. But I assure you, this team and the team that's been working throughout the summer, day and night, to make sure that our kids remain our compelling why. So I just would like to say thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other administrator comments, board member comments? Barb.
I'd just like to point out that as an adult, we're pretty resilient, and I think kids can be too, for figuring out technology. I wanted to thank my colleagues for offering their comments. I concur with them. Michelle, I appreciate you highlighting the frustration that we feel as board members, especially as we see the administration and the staff work diligently to try and come up with a solution that will keep our kids and staff safe. So I thank you all for your efforts. It is extremely frustrating, and I feel the frustration, and I've read the frustration from parents and families, and you are heard, and they should know that. And we're working to navigate through this in the best possible way.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? All right. Well, I think with that, I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:28.
Michelle has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Michelle.
It's okay. I was a little delayed.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I am the liaison from the board to Rochester Area Youth Assistance. And that's an organization that helps youth within our community, not only with some mental health and that type of thing, but also from a financial side with activities for youth in the area. And while there may not be many areas where you can participate in those things at this time, the organization is specifically looking for a treasurer on our board. And so I just wanted to point out, if there's anyone who is watching who might be interested in taking on a volunteer role and supporting the youth in our area, if they go to either the Rochester Area Youth Assistance webpage, contact me directly, or on Facebook, there's a link if you're interested to submit your name and information about yourself. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Michelle. And thanks for being a part of that organization. It's a great organization. And now I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:30. Moved by Michelle, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor say aye.
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 That's a 7-0 vote. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Night, everybody.